So I wanted to change the topic of conversation a little bit, and to first of all, I wanted to comment on what Human Rights Watch research has found about the very close links between pay and abuse of athletes. And Human Rights Watch, as I said, has interviewed football players and athletes from more than 50 sports on the problem of abuse in sport. And this is taibatsu, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and also wage cheating. So for example, in Afghanistan, the women's national team players were not paid, and the president was able to sexually abuse them because they needed money for cleats or for other things. And I wanted to ask Kate if she thinks that players having money to live, money to eat, money to buy supplies will in some way protect them from situations of abuse where they can be taken advantage of, especially if the players come from poor backgrounds.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think by taking away people's independence and choice and freedom, by disempowering them and having that power dynamic where they're economically constrained and they're making decisions through that lens, that it becomes very, very challenging. I kind of reflect on it as being in almost a domestic violence circumstance where a lot of women who don't control the finances within that relationship then become beholden to the male partner, and they can't escape that reality. It's very, very challenging. So I think there's a direct link between having financial stability and being able to move out of that situation where you have control and some choice as well.
And I wanted to take the opportunity to recognize important partners of this coalition that we are building for a campaign that we call Kick Abuse Out of Sport. So we want all of the soccer players to take pictures of themselves kicking a ball with the hashtag Kick Abuse Out of Sport. And I wanted to recognize our important partners and advisors in this area. Seiji Inuma is the founder of Athletes Save Japan, which is an important organization. When we talk about safe sport means that athletes should be free of all forms of abuse, but also that they shouldn't be injured when they are playing. So Athletes Save Japan provides a range of training to athletes and really has elevated the role of athletes in society. So thank you, Seiji-san, for being with us.
Thank you so much.
ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
I also want to recognize Miyuki Kobayashi, who has been a pioneer in women's football in Japan. And obviously everyone on this call knows that that the women's football program in Japan is among the strongest in the world. Japan won the Women's World Cup in 2011. But I would like to, I'll let Aline do the translation, but then I'd like to invite Miyuki Sensei to say a few words. And I want to say football is an international family. I met Miyuki-san through Moya Dodd, who is one of the original women's national team players in Australia. So football is one big international family. And Miyuki-san, would you say a few words about how you see football in Japan compared with Australia? Are there some lessons Japanese women's football can learn from football in Australia?
Thank you, Minky. Thank you, Aline. I think Just now, I'm in the office of the WE League. We the WE League, the Japan Women's Professional League is starting this year, and as I was working in the club JF United until the last month, and I just started the job now. And thank you for Kathy. It's a very useful information about. Now we are thinking about professional association, players association, and we set up the minimum pay for the WE League, because I know like in some Europe, even though they say the professional players, they are not really paid enough to live on. So it's not really equal pay, but it's just we started the minimum conditioning. So condition, and of course with the medical care. So how you make equal pay is very informative. And in Japan, so in Australia, I know that Australian Players Association is doing a lot to pursue the equal pay. So first of all, in Japan League, we just started with the minimum pay, and then it's enough to live on. So as the WE League starts, and we have to prosper, and we have to make some popularity in the WE League too, because we have to gather some spectators as well to get the revenue. So maybe the first thing is that. So, but it's really informative, and then maybe that for the students here is. I was very impressed about the students here. So many people here to listen to those things. So it's a new era, for the football and for sports in Japan, especially the former President Mori is about his speaking. So it's very getting aware of the gender equality now. So it's a good time to the job. So thank you.
So I would like to keep the program going for an additional 10 minutes, if this is okay, to ask if there are any questions. But I would also like to give Human Rights Watch's position on Chairman Mori's comments. And you may be asked as athletes, what is your position on Chairman Mori's comments? And I can tell you his comments violate the Olympic Charter. They violate Olympic Agenda 2020, which is a commitment by the IOC for gender equality and gender parity, right? They also violate international human rights law, and they create a toxic workplace. So if he was the CEO or a leader at a company or the United Nations, this man would not be in his job anymore already. And I think it is useful that this debate is happening in Japan now, because there is so much abuse in sport. When Human Rights Watch did our research about Taibatsu, we found that even where there are reporting lines to report abuse, sometimes those phone lines go directly to the men who may be committing the abuse.
ギルさんにお聞きしたいんですけれども、今回の森さんの発言があってですね、改めてスポーツ界のジェンダーバイアスみたいなものは本当に明るみになって、やっぱりそうなんだっていうふうに皆さんも受け取られていると思うんですけれども、実際これは女性のトピックでありながら実は男性の問題なんだと思うんですね。でギルさんの、オーストラリアではどういうふうな状況ですか、例えば比較してみて、で今回のその森さんの発言ですとか日本の状況についてはどんなふうに、感じられてますか？
Yeah, I have to say I'm in a dual leadership role with my current position, and my co-chief executive is a male. And I told him about these comments, and he said, I speak more than you speak. So I totally disagree with him. Like, he couldn't understand. He's like, so yeah, but I was disgusted when I heard it. And I think it's a broader issue of men being very comfortable in positions of authority and not being challenged, and females not being given the opportunity to have a voice in leadership positions. And I think that's a historical legacy of the frameworks that elevate men to leadership positions and disempower women, or they go through a system and a framework where they feel like it's not supportive of them, so they're not going to rise through the ranks in that way. And I think that translates broader socially. Everything that's been established has come from a male framework and has been made, decisions have been made by men. So I think we need to kind of redefine the structures and the systems that allow for this to keep occurring.
Yeah. Kate, I hope it's okay if I end by something that you said to me earlier stuck with me, and that is that you were offered the chief executive role at the PFA, and you actually invited your male partner to be to have a power sharing arrangement, and that has worked very well for the players. I have seen with the Unisocc youth, with we have a lot of male allies in gender equality work around the world. So I want to ask you about that. Do you think it is essential to have male allies like Sugiyama Sensei and many others who can help to level the playing field for women and girls? Or maybe they put the box on the next to the fence to help. What do you think?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. The reason that we were able to execute the gender equality deal was because of the Socceroos, so the male national team.
The male team.
They embraced it, and they were like, we should have done this a long time ago, was their exact words. So there was no pushback from them. They were true champions of having the Matildas stand next to them instead of lowering their standards so that everybody was together. So I think it's so powerful. And my boss, before I took over, was such a strong advocate for gender equality and women's rights. And he's also the main architecture behind the deal as well. So it was fantastic that I've been able to see firsthand just how strong male allies can be to drive this movement forward.
So the last, I wanted to say the last question we had from the Unisocc athletes, and it was, how should the sports world tackle discrimination? And I wanted, Human Rights Watch is honored to partner with all of the groups and individuals here today, but we also believe in action. So partnership is nice, progress is better. And so we want to invite you all to join the Japan Safe Sport Project. This is a new organization to fight against discrimination and for safety in sport, meaning to end taibatsu. We also want to set a deadline. And the deadline is 2023, when Australia and New Zealand will host the Women's World Cup. And we can all go visit Kate Gill in Australia